Welcome to the Dubai Airshow 2025, and behind me you can see the first test example of Boeing's upcoming 777X. Crucially, set to be the largest twin-jet passenger aircraft produced when it enters production. However, with this aircraft having had notable certification and testing delays, we catch up with the team to find out what's been going on behind the scenes the last couple of years. We're also going to talk to test pilot Captain Heather Ross to find out her perspective of flying this aircraft. Justin, it's great to be here with you today on the 777X test aircraft number 1, I believe.
That's right.
It's been a busy few years since you last touched down here in Dubai. Talk me through some of the progress and the milestones for that period of time.
Well, thanks, Charlotte. We're really excited to be here. And you're right, this is airplane number 1, the first of 5 active flying test airplanes in our test airplane program. This airplane's been very busy, of course, going through the certification testing, preparing for this airplane to enter service, which is expected in 2027.
And 5 aircraft in the fleet flying. Are they all flying at the moment, or have we got different aircraft doing different test mission profiles?
So they are all uniquely tailored to certain types of tests, although they work as a team, obviously going through blocks of testing that are the way our flight test program is organized. But they are uniquely tailored. And you can see this airplane looks quite unusual on the inside. It's designed for a certain type of testing, and as the first test airplane, it does have some unique configuration aspects that are tailored for the type of flying that we do on the initial first airplanes. But we also have 2 airplanes in the fleet that have full customer, like passenger cabin interiors. So each airplane tailored in a certain way to cover certain aspects of the testing.
And do you have a figure for roughly the total amount of hours that the fleet have amassed amongst the whole fleet?
So the total fleet has flown over 4,200 flight hours, and I believe a little bit over 1,500 flight cycles. And that is a lot for a flight test program, but we are nearing completion of our flight testing.
And congratulations, I believe you've just had FAA approval to start the 3rd phase, I suppose. Talk me through a little bit about what that means and what that next stage is going to entail.
Yeah, so you could think of the test program as it's a very large body of work, and you could think of it as divided up into bite-sized chunks, but really it's for the purposes of ensuring that the airplanes have to be configured uniquely for certain sets of testing, and so we have to go through it in an orderly way. And in between each set of testing, an airplane might come out of service to be reconfigured for the next specific tests that it will face. And that's why the test program is organized the way it is. So out of a total of 5 major TIA phases or chunks of tests that we have to complete, you're right, we've just received approval to begin the 3rd phase.
And do you know roughly how long that 3rd phase is going to last before you move into the subsequent phases of the flight test program?
Well, I can't really say how long, and of course, some of those things are a little bit out of our hands because we work with a regulator and we have to show compliance and meeting certain test conditions as we go through. And some things obviously are even weather condition related or dependent on other things that are outside of our control. So I wouldn't want to put a timeline on it specifically, but we are making good progress and steadily working through these phases.
I mean, thinking of things that may be beyond your control, the FAA shutdown, did that have an impact on your operations and your flight testing activities at all?
You know, it really didn't. The FAA has been really good and continued to support us through the government shutdown. So we were able to continue flying, which of course we really appreciate.
I mean, obviously it's quite well known that we've had sort of somewhat delays with the program, you know, the thrust link sort of being the main thing that comes to mind.
Sure.
As I understand it, that issue's now rectified.
Yeah.
Is that across all 5 airframes that's now been sorted?
Yes, yeah. So that did result in a minor design change to the thrust links, and that's now been incorporated into the airplanes and is really behind us. So there's no additional testing or considerations related to thrust links that will continue, and really there is there's large amounts of work related to certification that aren't actually the flying of the airplanes. It's really related to the paperwork, if you will, and the documentation, and presenting that documentation in the way it can be consumed by the FAA, the way they want to receive it. And so we're working really hard to make sure that we are working through those processes.
So it's a dual effort in the ground and on the air simultaneously, I suppose.
Absolutely. There's in addition to the folks that are flying these airplanes, thousands of engineers working to work through all of the requirements of the certification program.
And I know you've got the support of Tim Clark, Emirates CEO, who I believe in November stated that he had confidence in that the program was going to be able to deliver on time. How confident are you that I think 2027 or 2026 could be met now?
Yeah, 2027 is a high confidence schedule for the program, and we're working towards that and working closely with our customers to ensure that they understand when they'll be able to get their airplanes.
And what would be the biggest obstacle that you would perceive between now and then? Is it more just a question of getting that regulatory compliance in order, or is it more aerial test-based activity?
Yeah, and certainly not an obstacle. I wouldn't describe it that way. Our CEO probably said it best. He described it as a mountain of work to go, and it is a mountain of work to get through in the certification process that we're working through. So it really is just the amount of work to get completed.
I mean, 565, do correct me if I'm wrong, firm orders so far, a lot of them based in this region of the world. What makes this airplane a prime candidate for customers such as Emirates, which I believe are your main customer in terms of aircraft numbers operated?
Yeah, you've done your homework. That is the current number of sales.
I have tried to do a few notes.
565 sales, and really it's an airplane that fits into operators worldwide, and we have 14 great customers for this airplane family at this point. It is very popular in this part of the world. It has very long range capability. Some of the things that it uniquely offers that the competitor doesn't is simply the size of the airplane and the width of this cabin and the comfort that we can offer in the passenger cabin, which of course the premium experience is a huge focus in this part of the world, and that's definitely something that this airplane will be able to offer.
I mean, I quite like this experience. This is not the premium experience. This is the test configuration experience, as you can probably tell. But
indeed, yes, this is not a luxury cabin, but it is well on its way to delivering airplanes that have that full luxury passenger experience.
And the range we're talking on it, starting here from Dubai, where can we go?
Well, we can fly all the way home to Seattle, no problem. But range for this airplane in a typical configuration, about 7,300 nautical miles.
Talk me through the ETOPS certification expected by Q1 26.
Yes, so this is a very long-range airplane. The ETOPS capability of the airplane is very important to all of our customers. This airplane will complete its TIA phases, the certification testing that we've been speaking about, and then it will go through a period of ETOPS testing, and that will be right in between the end of TIA certification testing and certification of the airplane.
And we've got separate dedicated certification teams working on this. Are the delays to the 7 and the 10, talking about the MAX family here, have they impacted this program at all?
So there are multiple development programs going through certification at the same time at Boeing, and some of those resources are shared across programs, and some of them are uniquely devoted to each an individual airplane program. But it is set up so that it's not one pacing the other, so they are separated in that sense, and we don't have critical paths or critical resources that are needed on both programs and are constrained in that way.
Captain Heather Ross, it's great to be here inside the test aircraft, but you've got a little bit more knowledge than we have, quite considerable amount more knowledge than us of what actually goes on at the heart of this machine. Talk me through a little bit about how you became a test pilot on the 777X to start with.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I learned about being a test pilot while I was going to university. We had a pilot or a flight test program, and I realized at that point that there was this opportunity for me to actually be both the pilot and an engineer and blend kind of both of those career fields together. And so that became my goal pretty much right after college. And so everything that I did leading up to really today has been to try and get back and get that job as a test pilot. So I finished my degree in engineering And I came and I worked here at Boeing for a while as an engineer. And then I left and I joined the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, and did that for a while, joined an airline and flew for them for a while, and then came back to Boeing and worked my way up from there, from one group that does some of our production flying to finally the experimental work that we do here within this organization.
Fantastic. And how long have you been flying the 777X for?
Well, this airplane's been flying since its first flight, I believe, December in 2019. And so I flew it right after. I've been flying it pretty much consistently for the last, I guess that's 6 years. 6 years and counting. The flight deck of this airplane is very similar to the 787. By that I mean we have these large displays, as you can see there, and they have the same flexibility that we have in the 787 in that we can display different information. So I can display like our ground camera here. I can swap the displays over and display other information. I can make a full-size display here of our ground camera so you actually see all of this. The ground camera is something that we have available for our customers if they want more visibility to what's going on underneath the airplane. That's new to the 787 architecture, if you will. The other thing that's interesting about these displays is that they're touchscreen, so I can actually select directly on the display itself. Each of these areas are touchscreen compatible, so you can actually press a button and change what display you have. So that's pretty, also some new technology that we have on this airplane. This airplane has the option for dual HUDs, heads-up display. And again, this is something that the 787 has. The 777, current 777 airplane does not have a HUD option. The 737 airplane has only one option, HUD option, so that's only available for the captain side. This airplane, you can have both HUDs. For me, I really like the HUDs because you can look outside and still see the primary, important information like airspeed, altitude, the attitude of the airplane, some of the flight modes. So that to me is really valuable because you can then also look out to the real world and see things like the runway or scan for traffic, that kind of thing. So it's very, very helpful.
I can see that's coming back to your military history as well, liking a head-up display. Why the decision to put the second one in then, if that's not currently an option in other models?
Well, and the only model where it isn't an option is the 737. The reason for two HUDs is that we believe that it helps for situational awareness for both pilots to have this information, because the pilot on the right-hand side can be the flying pilot. So that they have that HUD and that ability to use the information right in front of them while they're looking out is important for the right seat pilot. It's also good for training because eventually it's the desire that first officers or pilots that sit in the right seat will eventually become captains and will sit in the left seat. And so the more that they have experience that they have with the HUD, the more familiar they are, the easier it is to make that transition. To be honest, the HUD is a very easy tool to use, and I think it's very easy to transition to it. But again, more time you have with it, the better. So that's another advantage. Other things with this airplane, we have what we call a crew information gateway, which allows pilots' iPads and other tablets to actually connect with the airplane and display information on the displays and transfer information. And so previously, that was typically only able to be conducted by built-in EFBs. So the 787 has an EFB. It's an actual piece of equipment that sits over here. Whereas pilots, because most airlines now have their pilots carry tablets with all of their flight information and their flight plans and the performance data that they work for takeoff performance calculations. They can do all that on their iPads, and then on this airplane they can connect those iPads and transfer that information directly to the airplane. And of course, there's all kinds of security protocols for all of that. It's very complex and stuff that I don't understand at all, but that capability exists in this airplane. As far as the airplane itself, this is kind of an interesting mix of 787 and 777 airplane. So a lot of the systems are the same as a 777 because that's the heart of the airplane is a 777. So we have a 3,000 PSI hydraulic system, but we have the flight controls from the 787, and we've modified those flight controls to adapt to the longer body and larger wingspan of this airplane.
And what was the reason to have the flight controls from the 787 then rather than the legacy?
This airplane actually was the first Boeing airplane to use some what we call fly-by-wire, fully augmented capabilities. We had that capability only in the pitch axis. It's very detailed, but the fact of the matter is that with a more augmented flight control package, with a more flight control design, a more intense augmentation, we can do things like give the passengers a better ride. We can drive various different of the airplane systems to provide a smoother ride for passengers. And so it's actually an enhancement to ride quality for passengers, and the pilots just maneuver the airplane as they would any other airplane, and the airplane responds as they expect. The other thing is that we can have now pilots transition both from the 777 to the 777-9 and the 787 to the 777-9 easily. And it's just very simple. It's a very common flight deck.
So what do the next couple of months look like for you? Back to the testing program?
Yeah, we'll take the airplane back at the end of the show. We'll do some updates to the airplane and get it ready for the next set of testing, which is going to be a lot of our up and away testing, as we call it, some of our maneuvering testing, which we will be performing with our regulator as continuing that certification testing that we're doing.
Do you have sort of an average test mission length, or does it vary from mission to mission?
It varies. I mean, it can be as short as just, a couple of hours. It could be 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Typically not much longer than that, just because, we usually are operating with a very specific weight and center of gravity. And so as we begin to burn away from those specific weights and center of gravities, we're done. We have to bring the airplane back and reconfigure. So put more fuel on oftentimes.
Well, Captain, it's been brilliant meeting you, and best wishes for the show and the ongoing adventure you have ahead of you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.